All right, good day, everyone. For this week, we were supposed to talk on networking in the cloud, but apparently I figured it would be best to take it, from very easy to understand topics to much more complicated topics, right? I don't want to sort of bombard us with complicated topics just about now, right? So let's talk about some of the um, much more easier topics to understand, basically. And so right now I picked up week 8 topic, brought it to week 5, and I'm pushing week 5 a bit backwards, basically. Right. So what we'll be touching on this week is cloud databases basics, right? We kind of touched a bit on it and at the beginning part of our program. And we're going to be now diving deeper, a little bit deeper, and practicing more around databases in the cloud, probably creating information and all of those beautiful stuff. Right. So yeah, that's what we'll be touching on this week. And what that would lead us to is we'll be talking about what cloud databases are. We'll be talking about some of the popular cloud database services that we have out there. We'll be creating and managing a cloud database, one on Azure. We already created it previously, but then we're going to now have to now dive deeper into it, basically. Probably create a service that would help us to create data in our databases. Then develop practical skills, more or less. Yeah, so that's basically what we're going to be touching on um, at the end of the training today. So yeah, let's dive right into it. What is a cloud database? Just, pause the video at this point. Think about it based on what we already know. Pause the video at this point. Think about it. And, come up with something and let's see if it's kind of aligns with what we're going to be talking about, right? What is a cloud database? So I'm just going to be waiting for a bit and see. All right. So yeah, if you say that a cloud database is a service that's hosted or managed via a cloud platform, you're correct. If you say that a cloud database is a database that is hosted in the cloud, you're correct. If you say that a cloud database, a virtual database that's made available to you on demand, you're correct. So that's like generally what a cloud database is. A database hosted in the cloud, right? There are a lot of databases. We could even just talk briefly on what databases are. Databases are um, storage devices, could be a device, could be in the cloud, could be a service, right? So you have, in those days, we had diskettes, we had CDs as storage devices, we have flash drives as storage devices, disk drive, both SSD and HDD are storage devices, right? But then we also have machines that serve as storage devices, so that can store information about probably your service, your IoT device, and just about anything, right? So just storing so that you can be able to access that information subsequently or at a later time, right? So key characteristics of cloud databases, so that's databases in cloud, includes scalability. You're able to scale it, you're able to increase the size or the speed or the volume. You're able to increase the cores of the database. That's one very key characteristics of a cloud database. Then high availability, it's always available. There's never a downtime. And one of the reasons why it's even available um, at a high rate is the fact that, yeah, we're going to be talking a bit about it anyways, briefly, is the fact that most times they run automatic backups. So the fact that it's a service in cloud um, gives you an edge over having your own physical database. You have to manage everything about your physical database. But then when you have a cloud database, you have they're managed for you by the cloud providers, right? So you have persons who are already managing your databases for you based on settings that you've already provided, more or less. So it's a managed infrastructure, and that's another key characteristics. And then it's a pay-as-you-go pricing. So you could pause, and then you do not have to pay. Then you could turn it back on, increase the speed, increase the volume, and pay for as much as you're using, right? So it's a pay-as-you-go pricing. There's no upfront cost as against having your own on-premise databases. Like, so that kind of leads us to benefits over on-premises databases, right? One of the main benefits is there's no upfront cost. If I want to have my own on-prem database, I have to get some of the resources, networking devices, cables, servers, and all of those things, right, upfront before thinking about anything. But then on demand, on the cloud, you just go on there and request for a database, as we'll be saying subsequently. Right, you just go there, request for a database, and you have a database spin up for you in no time. So that's one of the edge that you have over on-prem databases. Then reduced maintenance, like I mentioned, you have someone who's already working on the database where you do not have to manage your database yourself. Right, you have cloud providers already maintaining it for you. Automatic backups, another thing, right? It's already there. It's a setting that's already available to you if you request for it. So automatically backs up your databases. Then global accessibility, right? You're able to access the databases globally, right? And then if your data center so depending on where your data centers are, right, you're able to access your databases globally, right? And then it's also cost efficient, basically, right? So that's just about some of the benefits over on-premises databases. Then when we talk about use cases, we use databases for web apps. We're not really going to be using a web app today. We're probably going to be using a console app, but then you can use it for a web app, for an IoT device or data, then real-time analytics and mobile backends, right? So our mobile phones, web applications, they all have connections to databases that helps us to keep information from time to time, which is really, really necessary for us to, to have and maintain that kinds of users assurance that when we have like our data persisted somewhere, we're definitely going to get our information back. So yeah, relational versus non-relational databases, right? So there are two types of databases. Yes, the relational database, and then there's the non-relational database, right? So when you talk about relational, we're just going to be talking briefly on the two of them, and let's see what we have. So when you talk about relational databases, you're talking about SQL database. I'm pretty sure you've heard of SQL, or some people pronounce it as SQL, right? It's called structured query language, right? And that kind of gives you an idea of why of the difference between relational and non-relational. Relational databases are actually structured, right? Let me see if I can get an image so for us to see structured databases image. Just wait a second. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this up here. So basically, this is what we're talking about, and let's see if I can pull this up. Yeah, basically. So this is what a relational database looks like. It's structured in that that's like the database name and then some of the properties in it. And then it's also there is a way to structure it such that it relates to one another. So we could say um, dictionaries have groups in them, descriptors have dictionaries in them, stats have dictionaries in them, somewhat related, right? Then when you talk about non-SQL database, they're not structured. They could either be documents or JSON type of databases or key value pairs, right? So that's like the main difference between a relational database and a non-relational database, the structure. The relational databases have tables, rows, and columns. Non-relational database have key value pairs, graph, columns, tables like sorry, documents like MongoDB and the likes, right? Then there are a couple of examples of relational database. You have MySQL, you have Microsoft SQL, you have PostgreSQL, and the likes, right? Um, then for non-relational database, you have MongoDB, yeah, you have MongoDB. You also have uh, ah, what's it called? Forgetting the name now. There's this other one from Microsoft. I'm trying to remember the name. Can't remember right now. Mm, Cosmos DB, yeah, Azure Cosmos DB. That's the one I'm trying to remember. So there are a number of them, number of NoSQL databases out there. Yeah. So then NoSQL databases allow for flexibility. You don't need the structure that you have here. You could just be flexible around it. So you don't need the structure that you have here, right? You can be flexible around it and create your schema, basically. Um, so what are some of the use cases for SQL databases? You're talking about financial systems, banking systems, CRMs, then application that requires complex queries, right? You use relational database for them. As a cloud computing engineer, most times you do not need to make some of these decisions, right? Um, you leave some of these decisions to either software engineers or database administrators to make. You just have to provision whatever decision that they've made, right? Say, oh, they mentioned, oh, we need an SQL database to provision it, structure it, manage it, and all of that, right? So decisions about which database to use is not really up to a cloud engineer to um, carry out. Use cases for non-relational databases, real-time apps like charts, um, social media feeds, simple applications that do not need complex queries, right? More or less, yeah, that's what we have. So then when we talk about the comparisons between both type of databases, the trade-offs, you're either trading off consistency or scalability. So what do we mean? Relational databases are mostly consistent because of um, the rules surrounding it, right? And then you have scalability as well, right? So that would now, you have to choose non-relational database, you can just easily scale them, right? So you have to choose about when you compare them, what do you want? Then relational databases are structured, while non-relational databases are not really structured. So you have to check what trade-offs, what are you trading against the other before you decide, okay, what do you want to do? And um, comparison that you might want to do is decision checklists. Do you want a structured Yeah, so do you want your data structured? What transaction requirements do you have, right? All of these decisions comes into play when you want to decide which of the database types you want to use. So popular databases that are out there, you have Microsoft Azure SQL Database. It's fully managed SQL Server Engine, used for transactional systems, legacy app modernization. Um, all right, so legacy apps are applications that are, um, for lack of a better word, old, right? And you want to modernize them, right? You could just use them. Uh, it's not like, you slap an SQL database on it and then it's modern. No, one of the steps will be to modernize the database as well, right? Then another one is the AWS Relational Database Service. That's RDS, right? It's a managed relational database, so you have access to MySQL, PostgreSQL. There's also access to let me see. Let's just quickly do a quick check on Microsoft Azure. There's also access to Postgres and MySQL on Azure. Let me see. If I click on SQL database, let's see what we have here. So, okay. That's not what I wanted. So let's see what we have. Let's check from here. Posts. Yeah, so we have PostgreSQL Server. Remember we talked about Cosmos DB. So if I let's check for my SQL. My SQL. Yeah, so you have my SQL Server as well, right? So um you could create any of these Azure database for MySQL, and then you also create PostgreSQL as well. Right, then Cosmos DB, so this is a NoSQL database. It's a globally distributed, multi-model, fully managed database using API of your choice, right? So these are like the databases that we have out there. We're gonna go back to the board, but that's just to show you what's available. Then features for Microsoft Azure is it's hyperscale. You have 100 plus terabytes serverless tier, and it's always encrypted, right? So security is assured for you. Then features for RDS, automated backups, which you can also have on Azure SQL Database as well. Read replicas and encryption, right? So these are like the features that comes mostly out of the box for you without having to, provision a system, a server by yourself upfront, basically. So, on demand, you're getting all of this. Um, then one other thing, apart from Azure and AWS, there are other platforms, that provide cloud databases for you. We spoke about AWS, which you can check. But then if you um, Google MongoDB Atlas, you can also get MongoDB Atlas is a fully managed cloud database service that simplifies deploying, scaling, and managing MongoDB database. So instead of, if you probably just want to provision like a free database, uh, sometimes you don't need to go to the big threes. You can also get some of these free databases from some other platforms, like MongoDB you can get from here, from MongoDB Atlas, basically. So you could also check for other things like PostgreSQL. I think they should have like other platforms that can provide PostgreSQL for you, even at a much cheaper rate than probably what you may get um, from Azure or AWS. So it depends on what you're looking for. That would now influence your decision as to what to do. So yeah, right now we are on hands-on activity / live demo, right? We want to launch an SQL database in Azure, and connect it to we want to connect to the database and as well as access data in the database. We tried this previously, weren't all that successful, but we're gonna work on it again and definitely gonna be successful this time around. So let's give it a shot. So normally we can just do this, click on SQL database and create. We could go to the drop down and look for SQL database and create as well. You could also use this box up here and look for SQL databases as well and create, right? So these are like the different ways that you can create a service, right? So we already have like a subscription. We're going to apply this offer. So it's already there. It's a free database for us. So let's just apply the offer. We're going to call it Scale Forth Database and a database name Scale Forth DB. Create a server. So let's create a server. Sure. Server name Scale Forth server. And we're going to use Africa as usual. Use SQL authentication. So it's going to call it Scale Forth. Give a password, a very secure password. Basically. All right, so we also want to remember our password, right? So a secure password, I want to remember it. So that's been created. We don't need to save it because I'm definitely going to be deleting this after this. All right, so autopass database at next month. Yeah, so let's go to networking, connectivity method, now first. Let me see. Yeah, so I'm gonna give you a new access for now. I'm gonna leave it at no access for now. I'm gonna leave all of this as is. Connection policy defaults, use redirect policy for our clients, and all of that stuff. I could say public and allow Azure services to do this or add my current IP address, but I'll do this basically when I finish creating. Right, so let's go to security. We don't want Defender at the moment. We do not want Ledger, server identity. We don't want any of this. We just leave it as default. Additional settings, data source. So we can either back up stuff or get sample data, right? I don't want the sample data, and I don't want backup, right? Because I want this to be free, right? So, but if I want to back it up, I can do that, right? Now tags and finally review plus create. Okay, so now we have that. Let's create. So allow for the creation of a database, submitting deployment. So just gonna wait until it's deployed and we'll have our records. Oh, great. So now we have our database deployed. So let's go to the resource and see what we have in there. Okay. All right. So we have our database connection string, which we can show in there. Please make sure that your connection strings are private. Do not show your connection strings right now the way I'm showing it, right? Because with your connection string, just about anyone can have access to your database, especially if there's no other security beyond your connection string towards your database. Some other security that you could have is, specifying the IP address that can access the database. But then still, make sure your connection strings are private. I'm only allowing it right now because I'm definitely going to be deleting this database after this, after recording this video. So we need, this is our server. Let's just copy our server. All right. So you could download something called SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. I'm gonna be showing it to you now to check your database. So this is me trying to connect to my database. It's okay. Hold on. Yeah, so this is me trying to connect to my database. The server name, which is gonna be this. Windows authentication, SQL Server authentication. So I'm gonna have my login and password. The way I created it on when creating when creating the database. So when I try to connect, it's not going to connect because I have not allowed any IP address try to connect to can't connect to this. This is using an instance specific error code while establishing the connect. Connection was denied since denied public network access is set to yes, right? So the IP address is not configured properly. So now this is what we need to do to configure that. So let's go to overview, and you can configure the access here. So we need to configure now and allow my IP address to be able to access it. So selected networks and add your client's IP address. So when I do this, I'm going to be able to access my system will be able to access the database. All right, so let's try again to connect. And we're successfully connected. I'm going to bring it up now. Good. So now we're successfully connected. This is our database. Scale for DB is here. Right. Right now we do not have any tables. Right. So but we can create a table now. Yeah. So we can create a table and also create data in the table. So let's see what we have here. I'm just call it name. Data type should be inverter 10 or no. Let's say inverter 50. Age should be integer. Let's see. Small ints. Yeah, I think this is fair. And then I think we're good. Right. Okay. So now we can name this table first table. First table. All right, awesome. So if I were to reload this, I should get my test table here and check. So let's to see if there's any information in it. But right now there's no information in it. All I did was the schema, right? Created the schema or the structure, right? Remember when we talked about structure, is see it's empty. So I can also edit our table to add information. So information, I'll add John Doe, and the age for John Doe is, let's say, 18. Then add Jane Doe, and the age for Jane Doe is probably 23. And that's what we have, right? Okay. All right, so let's now go to our screen again. Let's try to see the database right here on the platform, on Azure, Microsoft Azure. So let's log in. Okay, let's check our tables. So we have our table here. So this is a structure that we created, name and age. We try to select top 1,000. Now we have John Doe as 18, Jane Doe at 23, basically, right? Now let's attempt to use like a web app. So a simulated web app to access this. So what I'm going to do in this scenario is create like a simulated web app using Visual Studio Code. At this point, you don't need to do this. I'll just show you what you need to do. But this is just to test out a database from different environments on the cloud, on SQL Server Management Studio, and through a code system, basically. So let's I'm spinning up Visual Studio Code. It's a code editor that we would need. So yeah, so this is Visual Studio Code. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, so let's open up a folder to work with. I'm gonna do that off screen. I'm still with you. Just creating a folder to work with. All right. So here we are. All right, so I'm gonna spin up a .NET Console application. Just something to work with faster. Because this is just an attempt to access our database from a code service. All right, so just let me do this now. So we're going to have, let me see, .NET new console and just spin up one. And we're going to also attempt to use AI to write the code as well. So while that is spinning up, I'm going to use AI to write the code. Okay, good. So we have our program.cs here. So right now I'm acting like a software engineer who would use the database that you've created for me, right? So right, a console app that accesses SQL Server to create a table, store to no to get records from the database. Okay, so let's attempt this. This is just trying to do much. Well, let's see what we can do. Okay, so um saying I need to install SQL data client. So let's install that. Okay. So it's installing now. So while that is happening, we're gonna get this code and see what we can do. So we're only going to be trying to access the database using code. Okay. Okay, so that's done. Now let's paste our code. So we have our code here, and so now this is our connection string. We can get our connection string right here on our dashboard. Let's go to our dashboard. Okay, so connection strings. So the connection string is how we're able to connect to um how we're able to connect to the database, right? So that's what the connection string is. So we're going to be connecting to the database using the connection string, which I'll pass here. Um, so this is the database name or the table name. Then this is the user ID that we created. So we need to pass in the password here, which I would do off screen. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's done. Okay. Now, so this other stuff says select ID, name, and role. But for our case, it's not name and role, it's name and age from the table. The table name is what? Let's confirm. What's the table name? Test table, right? So our table name is for test table. So from test table, right? So this is what you call the structured query language. So this is an SQL script that we're using to access the database. So now what we're going to do is after doing all of this, we write the name, ID name, and age. Yeah. So ID name and age. Yeah. Uh, did I do something wrong? Ah, okay. So then yes. Okay, good. So now let's run this and see what we have. .NET run and see if we can get what we need from the database. So we're supposed to get John Doe 18, Jane Doe 23. Let's see if we get it. So because it's a new solution or a new code, it's trying to restore and build the code and then try to access the database. So it's taking a bit of time, but let's just give it some time. So I'm gonna pause it for now. Ah, yeah, I think SQL connection is obsolete. Use Microsoft's error column name ID, invalid column name ID, right? So it's complaining about a few things, which it's not stopping it from working. So we're just going to remove the name, column name, and see what we have. Okay. Yep. And read this. So what we just want now is the name and the age. So let's go again. So it's running again. Yeah, but this time I think it's faster. And let's see what it gets for us. Good. So you see, we're able to get our name and age, right? John Doe 18, Jane Doe 23, all while using our code here, right? So you see that the database now is accessible from different platforms, from cloud platform, from our code, from SQL Server Management Studio, which I'll drop the link for us to be able to download while we're working on it and to just play around with it, right? So that's basically how our cloud platform works. You can also look through some of the other um, sections that we have here on the platform to see what you can do, the security platform, data encryption, monitoring platform for alerts. Basically, if you want to set alerts to let you know, like maybe when your database is down or when your database is misbehaving and all of that stuff, right? So that's more or less what we have for you for the sprint for this week training, right? So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask your questions, right? And at this point in time, I'm going to be deleting our database, starting from the resource group. So we're going to be deleting the resource group, which should influence all of the other things under it, right? So just copy this and paste it here and delete this. So it's supposed to delete everything under the resource group. All right, so we're deleting now, and that should be done, right? So while that is happening, let's do a bit of recap, right? A bit of recap. We already know what cloud databases are and some of the popular cloud databases, right? We also know the difference between relational and non-relational databases. We're able to show you about a little bit about relational databases. But some of the examples of non-relational database, Azure Cosmos DB or MongoDB, right? So those are non-relational databases. The differences, one is the relational database are structured, while non-relational database are non-structured, right? Talked briefly on AWS RDS and Microsoft Azure SQL databases. If I were to create an AWS RDS database, I could still connect to it using my code or SQL Server Management Studio, basically, right? So that's more or less what we have. I'll be uploading the video soon and also have you your assignments shortly. Thank you for listening and do not hesitate to ask us any question if you do have any. Bye for now.